Hey everybody, this is Daniel.
Emmanuel.
Bothers of Truth. We're going to talk about the Dakota Access Pipeline and the Standing Rock Tribe and the great work they're doing out there opposing those who are trying to build the pipeline. Like, it's really serious what's going on out there. We're going to throw up some pictures so you can kind of see what's going on here. But I'm going to give you a little gist of where things currently stand. Right now, the UN and Amnesty International are actually sending human rights observers out there because what's happening is that police and security officials, like private security, which have actually been reported that don't even have their licenses to do this work out in North Dakota. They've been responding to water protectors, not protesters, because they're trying to protect the sacredness and cleanliness of their water. They've been responding to them with pepper spray, bean bags, rubber bullets, using private security staff with guard dogs, against protectors that included women and children. It's just been a mess. They've been charging them with minor offenses. They even arrested a movie star, Shailene Woodley, who's been in the Divergent series. She even reported that she was strip searched. There's just craziness going on out there. And now Amnesty International and human rights are now sending observers. The UN are sending human rights observers out there to see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, just to give you a little bit of background, this is all about this is all premised upon the indigenous population, or indigenous tribes there, fighting for their land rights that was agreed upon in the Laramie Treaty in 1851.
Yes.
Just to give you a little bit of information about the Laramie, am I saying this correctly?
Yeah, Fort Laramie.
Laramie Treaty. This treaty was was back when there was a dispute between the two tribes, etc. And in order to appease them, the government solution was to assign each tribe a defined territory where they would remain. Kind of interesting because Americans were the ones who were encroaching on their property. Anyway,
invading.
Invading. Yeah, that's one way of putting it too.
Yeah,
rather than encroach.
Well, we use the term settlers when we talk about America and Native Americans.
We just want to settle right here. Kick you motherfuckers out.
We were. Well, it's not we because I didn't do it.
You guys.
The Europeans were not settlers; they were invaders, and they did make that agreement. And the sad thing is, if you look at U.S. history, the United States has a consistent history of not honoring treaties. with the Native Americans.
Yeah, so they're very much like Trump. Anyway, the government solution was to assign each tribe a defined territory where they were to remain. Government negotiators have the various Indian nations appoint head chiefs to these councils so they could deal with the small group of men rather than the entire nations. So they very much did grant them this land in a treaty in the Fort Laramie Treaty. So, of course, again, like you were saying before, our government has an interesting way of adhering to our treaties and our rules, especially when it inconveniences our oil companies. Whoops, didn't mean to say that. I mean our banks.
And I want to touch on that in a second, but I just want to mention how sad this entire situation is because keep in mind, when they were building the pipeline, it was going to go through other communities. And those people spoke up and said, we don't want this going through our communities because it could poison our water. And the builders went, yeah, sure, okay, we get it, that's fine. Yeah. And then decided to go through Native American land. And the Native Americans are doing what they should be and what is admirable. They are speaking up, they are speaking out, they are protesting it, they are unarmed, and they are being beaten up by the U.S. government and a silent President Obama. So you mentioned the banks. I want to touch on this. This is really important because Democracy Now! We'll include this in the description, did a great story, and they've been talking about what the mainstream media want, which is who is funding this pipeline. And so basically, I just want to give you some of the important tidbits. The pipeline is owned by Energy Transfer Partners, LP, and it's a joint venture between them, Sunoco Logistics, and there's a bunch of banks involved in this. So Citibank is the main bank involved. And then Bank of America, HSBC, UBS, Goldman Sachs. Have you ever heard of them before? Small little financial group?
Yeah, little financial firms.
Wall Street. Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase. So when you wonder, like, why aren't we hearing from Hillary Clinton? We talked about that in a past video. That's why. That's why we're not hearing from her. That's why we're not hearing from President Obama. That's, of course, why we're hearing from Bernie Sanders. He wrote a letter to President Obama admonishing him to step in and do something. And even why you have indigenous youth, I want to pull this up in New York, minutes before the police raided one of the camps in North Dakota, Native American youth flooded the campaign headquarters of Hillary Clinton to demand that she oppose the pipeline. And let's read her statement, because this was, as one person said, a great big pile of nothing. Secretary Clinton has been clear that she thinks all voices should be heard and all views considered in federal infrastructure projects. Now, all of the parties involved, including the federal government, the pipeline company and contractors, the state of North Dakota, and the tribes, need to find a path that serves the broadest public interest. As that happens, it's important that on the ground in North Dakota, everyone respects the demonstrators' rights to protest peacefully and workers' rights to do their jobs safely. Your face is great, because that was a great big pile of nothing.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That was like, how can we cover every single position
everybody
without actually saying anything?
Yeah.
That's the kind of
That's
conversation.
how you represent everybody's interest, right?
And represent no one's interest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how you go into a roach-infested apartment and represent the interests of the roaches, the feces, the toilet seat that's broken. Everybody there, everyone has an equal stake in this operation. It should be represented equally.
Yes. And kind of like in a video we did just recently where I was talking about the Oregon militia being acquitted, we can't say that we live in a country that has liberty and justice for all when people are protesting big business oil going through their communities, and they are responded with attack dogs, with pepper spray, with rubber bullets. All of that in the land of the free and the home of the brave. It is absolute nonsense. It is embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so many people who are not speaking up we're gonna look back and say, how dare you? How did you not say anything?
And many people, especially many Americans, are completely uninformed on those facts.
Completely.
Right?
That's a great point.
That's because the mainstream media, of course, is complicit in all this. Of course, we've had multiple videos where we've demonstrated to you the way that our American corporatism or American corporate cronyism system works, and how the media is an essential part of that. If Citibank, if SunTrust, if Wells Fargo, if all these major banking institutions who are investing in these pipelines are also invested in in these states, do you think that Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, these so-called media organizations, news media organizations, are going to report on the facts factually? No, they're not. They're not talking about the armored tanks that they have at these peaceful protests, right?
Exactly.
They're not talking about, the attack dogs that they have. They're not talking about the entire military-like outfit that they have at these protests. Or, better way to put it, actually, at these standoffs between the protectors and, of course, again, it seems history is repeating itself with the aggressive invaders.
Okay, and maybe I'm going to sound stupid here. If I do, you can say something in the comments. I don't understand why people are calling it a standoff. One side is militarized with tanks and dogs and weapons. The other side has prayers, ceremonial garb, children, and signs. And I'm not saying that to be diminutive of Native Americans at all. I'm saying that to contrast that.
Or to underestimate the power of science.
We're not doing that at all. I'm saying it like that to make the point clear that these are not two equal sides. This is not gun versus gun. This is like nonviolent protest and hope and justice versus like crony capitalism and just greed. And think about it. If you are one who is genuinely wondering whether Hillary or President Obama are going to say something about it, like if you genuinely think they will, think about who's funded their campaign. Goldman Sachs, these banks have extended like almost $4 billion in credit to the pipeline. So if they've extended all that money, do you honestly think that the banks are going to let Hillary Clinton and President Obama say something? Like once they decide to talk, we gave your money, we gave your campaign all this money, this is not something that you need to speak out about. So this is why we talk about the connection between what's happening in the news and the corruption that's going on in government. It's a clear, no pun intended, pipeline. Because you can see that this is who's investing in the pipeline. This is who's invested in these candidates and our current president. Of course they're not going to say anything. Even Trump hasn't said anything about the pipeline. Of course not. He's a businessman. He knows he knows who butters his bread, so he's not going to say anything either. Bernie Sanders has spoken up. Jill Stein has gone there and protested because they are not locked in to those money interests.
And this is a preview into what we're going to see out of the Hillary Clinton presidency, or just
Great point.
The neoliberal presidencies that are to come when Hillary Clinton wins.
Yeah.
So they're not. So obviously, the government is foregoing on the treaty that was made with these people, right? They're encroaching upon their civil liberties as well, right? So the fact that the mainstream media isn't covering it, right? So we're all too familiar with this, with being associated with Black Lives Matter, right? Where the media completely manipulates the perception of our events, our peaceful protests, etc., in order to portray us all as violent and agitators and all of those things, right? In order to advance a narrative, right?
Yes.
They're doing the exact same thing with these pipeline protesters right now, or these water protectors right now.
Yes.
And this is what they're going to continue to do in the future. If you think that this is going to be the last instance where we have people that are fighting against corporations coming in and stealing property or coming in and encroaching upon your civil liberties, you're not paying attention.
I agree.
This is the culmination. This isn't even the culmination. This is just one part of a series of cascading events that are going to continue to grow and become more prevalent, especially as scarcity becomes a growing concern. So.
And I'll just end with the way America will target those who have the least means to defend themselves, like in this case, unfortunately, Native Americans, because of the way America's treated them for so long. Don't think that this can't happen to you. This can happen to you where you live. All it takes is eminent domain, civil asset forfeiture. There's no telling how things could be taken from you. Yeah. And then when you look around and say, who's going to speak up for me? There's no one there because the government has given all of its interest and power to corporations who serve nothing but their own bottom line. Sure. We're going to continue to talk about the Dakota Access Pipeline because if the mainstream media is not going to cover it, we're going to cover it. Because that's what independent news does. This has been Daniel with the Bottle of Truth.
Emmanuel.
Have a wonderful day.